All right, going to talk a little bit about AEW and WWE. It was indeed a fact that Vince Russo put out there that AEW was a work by Vince McMahon. That was a tweet of his. It was there for all to see. I made some comments in one of my last videos about AEW, about this possibly being a work by Vince McMahon. I don't, and I said in that video that I don't believe that it is. Okay? Now, Vince McMahon is a highly intelligent individual. If anybody can pull WWE out of its slump that it's been in for a long time, it's Vince McMahon. Now, talking about AEW, the owner of AEW, the fact that they're just now really taking off, the timing couldn't be perfect because Vince McMahon is really preoccupied with the XFL, so he's got that going for him, and I hope that it works out for him. But I have my doubts on that. It didn't work the first time. Vince McMahon is the kind of person that he's a strategist. He doesn't like losing, We saw that in the past with the Monday Night Wars, okay? So, yeah, it was reported by Vince Russo. He thinks the whole thing is a work. The whole thing is a setup, whatever. Vince Russo is an idiot. Anybody that doesn't think that Vince Russo is an idiot, apparently they don't know their history all that well. Vince Russo was a magazine editor. Knew nothing about professional wrestling at all, hardly whatsoever. The guy liked to freaked out and had a heart attack when he was inside the railing at ringside for the first time. I mean, the guy is a complete moron, okay? A habitual liar. I made some comments in the past about Jim Cornette. Now look, Jim Cornette, I like Jim Cornette in ways. And in other ways, I do not like Jim Cornette. Jim Cornette, what I do like about him is the fact that he stands up for what the business really should be. Okay? There are a lot of fans these days that are liking professional wrestling for the show. Not for the art, but for the show. And that is not professional wrestling. Professional wrestling is people getting in the ring and making something look real that is not. See, fans are so used to, they know that it's a work. They know that it's choreographed, staged. They've come full circle with that, and they don't care. But the old timers, those of us who really respect the business, we want to see that art form. And it's hardly ever displayed anymore. If you want to join the circus and do some acrobats, go and do that. I want to see professional wrestling. I want to see two guys get in the ring and mix it up. Now, I'm not totally against high flying, those types of wrestlers, but I believe if a high flyer has that kind of repertoire, then that's all that guy really does. And that is a part of wrestling. It is. There are a lot of people that are all for AEW, as am I. I'm all for the competition. I will watch the show. I will always be a WWE guy, but we can't take away from the fact, and the fact is that they've been sucking horribly. Not just for a little while, for years now. And I believe it's because they didn't have any competition. They were making their money putting out lesser of a product. Well, now it's time to step up the game. Now AEW is coming full circle And they're going to take the spotlight away from WWE if Vince McMahon is not careful. Now, let's keep in mind, Vince is preoccupied with the XFL. Vince McMahon has all of that to think about. Vince McMahon is older in age. He's getting up there. How much effort is he really going to put in? We'll see. Triple H has done, in my opinion, then again, I was going to say he's done a horrible job, but then again, does he have full power over his position? Everything that he does, I'm sure Vince has the final say. So how much power does Triple H really have? How much reign over that territory does he really have, or does he have, as I've heard here recently, him and Vince got into it really bad because Triple H was like, look, the product sucks. And Vince basically didn't want to hear it. I heard that in an interview recently. So Vince McMahon needs to realize that, hey, man, things aren't working. It's time for something different. And he needs to do a better job than to hire somebody like Vince Russo, somebody who knows nothing truly, who wasn't even a wrestling fan per se. He just worked on the magazine back in the day that no longer exists. But you got to get somebody in there that's a fan of professional wrestling, somebody that respects the old timers of the business, somebody that wants to see the art form of wrestling, somebody that can create believable storylines. And we got to get some of this silliness out of professional wrestling. And I know that kids are watching, but the most successful time in wrestling was the Attitude Era. Now, I do understand that there was a lot of stupidness that went on during the Attitude Era. Much of that was due to a man by the name of Vince Russo. He did a lot of stupid stuff back in the Attitude Era. Now, a lot of stuff that was done did work, but that wasn't all Vince Russo. A lot of that was straight up Vince McMahon. So, all the bra and panty stuff, sex sells, we all know that. A lot of that, the majority of it was Vince Russo. A lot of the gold dust, just over the top, crazy stuff he was doing was Vince Russo. I mentioned Jim Cornette, and you know what? I like the guy because he stands up for the business. He stands up for the true wrestling fan that wants to see wrestling. Now, he does do some things that I don't agree with. First of all, he bashes our president, which I don't agree with. I don't think Donald Trump is a moron, Jim. If he were a moron, he wouldn't have been a multi-billionaire, long ago in his own right. So obviously the guy's not stupid. Secondly, he's a full-blown atheist. I believe in the big man upstairs. But Jim Cornette was a great manager, in my opinion. And the guy is highly intelligent. He knows the business. He does do some bashing of some individuals that goes far beyond what I think is necessary. He bashes Kenny Omega, who many claim to be the best wrestler in the world. I do not. I do think I respect Kenny to an extent. I think he's a great athlete, great athletic ability, a lot of acrobatic type maneuvers. I think he needs to work on his ground game a little bit. A lot of his basic moves I think he can improve on, and I think that he will, and I think he'll get better. His punches need to be thrown a little straighter. You compare his punches to, say, the punches of a Bret Hart, no comparison. Got to make them look a little more real. I don't just watch wrestling, I study these guys, and the guy's a great athlete. The guy's got a some great moves that he's able to do. A lot of innovative stuff, a lot of exciting stuff. I do not, however, think that he's the best in the world. There are other great wrestlers out there that are able to really mix it up in the ring. AJ Styles, being one of them. Dolph Ziggler, even, capable of really getting in the ring and putting on a good performance, even though WWE has done nothing with the guy. There's a lot of great wrestlers out there. Now, Omega is, like I said, extremely innovative. He does a lot of stuff that you don't see other guys doing. That is definitely true. From a professional standpoint, Kenny Omega has had a match with an imaginary opponent, which no wrestler should ever agree on doing that. Sometimes you got to tell the boss, no. For the sake of the business and for the sake of those that came before me, no, I can't do it. I won't do it. He had a match with a 9-year-old girl. Now, granted, this 9-year-old girl was trained. This happened over in Japan. He also had a match. The most outlandish match that he had was with a blow-up doll. It's beyond silly. There are some things you just gotta not agree to do. And that's in every job. I've had jobs where I've flat out told my boss it ain't happening. You can let me go right now. And you got to learn how to do that in life. Otherwise, people will run all over you. You had guys in the past like the Legion of Doom who flat out went out there and refused to drop the titles, the tag titles. They were the first tag team to ever do that. And it took them above and beyond where they ever thought that they would be, because they stuck up for what the fans wanted. Sometimes you gotta. I believe professional wrestling is an art. I don't believe that it's comedy hour. There are funny elements. There always has been in professional wrestling, but I believe that the integrity of the business should be upkept. AEW. Cody Rhodes. We all know that Cody can wrestle. They have formerly Neville. They've named him Pac, which I thought was dumb. X-Pac. It makes me think about X-Pac way too much when I hear Pac. They used to call him Pac. Come up with a more unique name for him. And I don't know what's going on with Pac because he skipped out of the last pay-per-view, from what I understand, due to not being able to come to terms with AEW. So I don't know what's going on there. You got Dustin Rhodes, who really, in my opinion, is running his mouth saying that WWE was holding him down. There at the end, I might agree with him. But, Dustin, let's face it, man. Who were you before you were Goldust? Now, granted, Goldust was a crazy character, especially in the beginning. Didn't go super far, but you went farther as Goldust than you ever had before as Dustin Rhodes the Natural. How far did that get you with WCW? It's WWE allowed you to take this gimmick of Goldust and run with it. And I don't see the respect there. They helped to make you. Just like Diesel, Razor Ramon back in the day when they left and went to WCW. What happened? They came back. Who made them? Vince McMahon made them. Okay? Then once they're made and once they're established, then they go back to WCW. It's money. It's a big time money thing. Kevin Nash was always about the money. And granted, these guys have families and they need to make money. I understand that, but just a lack of respect. Granted, WWE does suck right now. It sucks horribly. And things do need to change. And maybe Dustin was held down there toward the latter part of his career. But let's face it, the guy's getting up in age. They can't do a whole lot with him. And thank God that his character wears face paint, because all the drugs and everything that he's been involved in, the guy looks pretty rough. So yeah, I mean, you give respect where respect is due. If it's your time to leave, it's your time to leave. But don't just sit there and act like it was the most horrible time and experience of your life, because obviously everybody can see the writing on the wall that that's not true. They did some good things for that guy's career. Hell, he's been there how many years? If it was so bad, if it were so bad, he would have gotten out long before now. So that's all on you, Mr. Rhodes. But there are a lot of great wrestlers out there. AJ Styles. I wish they would do something different with Roman Reigns. I think he needs a harder edge. I think he needs... the guy, in my opinion, is not good on the microphone. Just doesn't sound good on the microphone. Doesn't cut a good promo. Never really done anything solid that the fans have really taken off with. They need to do something different with him. I'm not a huge fan of Seth Rollins, just something about the guy. I'm not saying he's not a good athlete. I think he needs to get rid of the curb stomp. I think it's a horrible finishing maneuver. It looks cheap. It looks fake. Not a whole lot of impact with it, because you can only apply so much impact. He needs to come up with something else, and certainly not the pedigree. The New Day need to go away. Not a fan of the New Day. Just corny. You got, especially with Kofi Kingston and Big E, just for them to be in that faction is retarded. I don't like it at all. That's just me. Call me old school. Call me whatever you want. I just don't like it. Braun Strowman should have had the title a long time ago. He was getting a really good push, and then all of a sudden, he's just like a mid-carder now. They bounce around guys entirely too much. They don't develop their storylines like they should. They don't give the younger talent coming up from NXT a real shot. There'll be one guy in NXT, they'll come over to the main roster and be somebody totally different. It's stupid. You let them get established in NXT, develop their fan base, and let them move over. You don't change them up once they've developed their character. That's just unwise. So Kenny Omega, I think he's going to continue to get better and better and better. Okay, taking nothing away from that guy. I know Jim Cornette's pretty rough on the guy, and I agree with the blow-up doll, and that's just crazy. And some things you just don't agree to. I don't want to. If I want to watch comedy, then I'll go watch a comedy on film. I want to see wrestling, and that's just my only knock to AEW. I just don't want to see them do a lot of what the WWE did in the past, especially in the Attitude Era with the comedy relief type stuff. I want to see more old school professional wrestling, guys tying it up in the ring, mixing it up in the ring, having some really great matches. It's not too often that we see a match that goes more than 12 to 20 minutes if we're lucky. I'm used to the 80s where guys would go for 45 minutes, just a lot of ground moves, a lot of aerial stuff, a lot of power moves, the story in the ring changing back and forth. That's all part of it, And when you allow a guy to get into the ring that's been training, and you give him a 6-minute match, it doesn't allow that guy to really show what he's got, and that's part of it too. These guys are not allowed to go out and really showcase what they're able to do. I know that there's guys that are begging, hey, let the two of us get in there, give us, we can tear the house down. but everybody's limited to what the company will allow them to do. I do think that AEW, I love what they're doing with Chris Jericho. They're allowing him to reinvent his character a little bit. WWE would not allow him to do that. Chris Jericho does not wear face paint. You know, he's getting older, so he needs to kind of reinvent himself a little bit, you know. Y2J is, you know, that's been around too long. You know, it's time to change. Same thing happened with guys like Sting. You know, if he were 50 years old out there with the bleach blonde hair doing the surfer thing, I don't think I don't think it would work for him. So, you know, it is what it is. Times change, and I understand that, but the integrity of the business needs to remain. And you know, there's times for the comedy aspect, but I think that a lot of that should happen outside of the ring. You know, let the wrestling take place in the ring. Do your comedy bits outside of the ring. Just a lot of drama and build up to the point where you'll see 15 minutes of talking in a 5-minute match. You know, it ought to be the other way around, you know, in my opinion. So these are just some of my thoughts, some of my opinions. I know I had a few people bash me for liking Jim Cornette. I like aspects of Jim Cornette. You know, he goes overboard in a lot of ways. I understand that. But he speaks the truth on Vince Russo. There ain't no doubt about that. So that's my take on that. Cornette, really good friends with the former William Moody, a.k.a. Paul Bearer, who is another great talent. Long before everybody knew him as Paul Bearer, he was Percival Pringle. Percy Pringle, down here near the Gulf Coast where I'm from. He was a great manager before he ever became Paul Bearer. Just so many great managers. And Cornette, manager of the Midnight Express. So many great battles between them and the Rock and Roll Express back in the day. Great feud. I mean, he really stands up for what the business is, what the business should be, does Cornette. Talks a lot about how real true life riots used to take place, you know, in arenas. Fans would try to stab the guys. I mean, it just crazy stuff, you know. Really stands up for the integrity of the business and just wants to see it be done the right way. So that's just some thoughts on him. I don't agree with everything the guy says. So let me know what you think down below. Who do you think is the best wrestler in the world today? If you think it's Kenny Omega, that's fine. The guy, like I say, he is a tremendous talent. I see some area of improvement that could be done with him. A lot of his facial expressions, a lot of even his in-ring attire coming to the ring, entrance music, which that's not him. You know, that's all the business. Some of his ground, I think if he got a little bit more ground established in the ring, a little bit more well-rounded, certainly you could put him up there, and you can now. I just think that there are some other guys that are just as capable in the ring. Maybe not quite as acrobatic, but good in other areas. So I think AJ is definitely one of the best right now, even at his age. So let me know what you think in the comment section below about AEW, WWE, whatever. If you haven't already, comment down below. Click on the bell to the right also to be notified of all my future videos. And you guys take it easy, and let's see what happens moving forward with AEW. You guys take it easy.